Hello Leeds, welcome to the next instalment of the Corona Bloody Virus Extraordinary episodes, where I remotely connect to Chris Nickson, a Leeds author. This is the first time that I've had a guest back for a second time. Chris features on episode 3 and he's come back to celebrate his 10th anniversary of being a published author. Have a listen to us chat. So welcome to another Corona Bloody Virus Extraordinary episode, and today I have Chris Nickson. Hello Chris.
Hello Hazel.
So Chris, you've actually been a guest on my podcast before. You were episode 3.
Back in the days when we could actually go out, yes.
Yeah, it seems like such a long time ago now.
It does, doesn't it?
And quite a lot has happened since then.
Yeah, you could say that.
So Chris, this year is your 10th anniversary of being an author.
It's a publishing book set in Leeds, yeah.
Wow. How does that feel?
Surprising, aging, good. Good that people are still letting me do it, you know. It's.
And you're still enjoying doing it?
Oh, I'm still loving it, yeah, absolutely. It's obviously things change a little the way they are right now. Mm-hmm. I had to stop working on the book that I was working on because the real fuel for that book was anger.
All right.
And it's kind of hard to feel that right now, to be honest. Mm. So I've set that aside and I'm working on a different book, which is actually a continuation of the Tom Harper series.
All right.
Which is kind of weird because there's one already complete, which is coming out sometime next year. The publisher schedules are set back a bit, so I'm not sure when. And this is the follow-on from that, so I'm getting way ahead of myself. But
yeah.
I have the series arc in my head for a while, and it's just a case of... This is set during World War I, 1917, and actually the mood is apt for how things are now. Mm. So, and I've also gone back to discover something I started work on a few years ago that I'm playing around with a little bit, which is a sort of novella set in Norman Leeds.
Oh, okay.
Which is
were you able to use any historical research for that then? Or is there much from that period?
Well, we know that there was a Norman sort of a little bit of a fort here, probably around sort of Mill Hill or where the Scarborough Taps is.
Okay. Which
became the manor house in time. We don't know much more than that because there was much more of a presence up around Adel and stuff like that, actually. Mm-hmm. So it would have just been a small garrison. And Leeds actually belonged to a monastery in York at that time. That's where all the rents went and all the income. So it was a little strange, you know, to us thinking, oh, we're free, upright citizens of Leeds. And yeah, well, we weren't back then. We were owned.
Yeah, by York.
Pretty much, yeah. Or even more, since the monastery had come out of France, we were owned by the French.
Oh, that's even worse.
I don't know. These days it might not be a bad idea. Better than Brexit, anyway.
Yeah, probably. And so... How is it as a writer getting into the mindset of people who were living in Norman times and thinking about the sort of things that they would be coming across and thinking about?
Well, their lives would be far more stripped down. You know, their houses were essentially one room, and if you had a second room, it was where you keep your stock in the winter. Mm-hmm. If you had any stock, and they would have some land of their own, more than we think of, you know, when we learnt in schools about strip farming and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The strips were actually bigger than we imagine. A strip would be about an acre, and the family would have several strips scattered around. So it's actually quite a bit of land to grow their own stuff. But of course, they'd be working on, in this case, the land that was owned by the monastery, which would be probably largely given over to sheep.
Right.
So, it's a case of making a lot of it up. There was one street at the time. Kirgit was the only street. And there were probably about 200 people. So it was a tiny, tiny community.
Mm-hmm.
And they would be very much a mix of Saxon and Norse. So by our standards, very primitive. But that's kind of part of the fun, actually, imagining that. And
yeah, I bet.
It's not too far from the Chesterfield series I've got in the 1300s.
Yeah.
Because I lived down near there for a while, and I love the place. So it's taking it back one step, if you like. Mm-hmm. And it's a connection with a Leeds that essentially nobody knows anything about, because there is nothing.
So is that good in a way, because then you get to, you not have to sort of refer back to anyone or reference anything. You're free to sort of make it up.
Pretty much. I mean, there are things. There was a hall where they would all meet, and the baker's ovens, and we had the church then, and there was actually, believe it or not, a moat around the church, supposedly.
A what, sorry? A moat?
A moat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, little things like that. There's actually a very good history book on Kirgit that's out, and I learned a lot about early Kirgit from there. But it's still very limited, so I can largely do what I want with it. And this is a murder mystery. If I ever get it finished, it'll be a novella, about 25 to 30,000 words, and I'll just put it up as an ebook and print on demand, probably.
Mm-hmm. And what was the book that you had a book out at the end of March? What was that?
That's called The Molten City, which is set in Leeds in 1908, and it's part of the Tom Harper series. So it's the backdrop is the suffragette riot where Prime Minister Asquith came to town, and that was something that really happened. The unemployed men and the suffragettes rioted outside what's now the O2, because Asquith didn't want to give. He betrayed the idea of votes for women. Right. Let's put it like that. There was a lot of unemployment at that time. So between everything, these people were not happy. But there's more going on, because there has to be. And Tom Harper's wife is a suffragist, so she believes in talk and compromise. But his daughter, who's 16 now, is very much a suffragette. So you've got that conflict in the family. Is that the difference
between the two terms then? That one of them,
pretty much, yeah.
One of them was sort of about action, really, and the other was just about sort of persuasion.
Yeah, exactly. And quite obviously at 16, the idea of action is going to be far more appealing than talk.
Yeah.
So you got some interesting things going on with that as well. But it's got some nice reviews, and particularly in the States, which is where I actually sell more in the States than I do over here.
Really? What do you think? Why do you think that is? Because I know you spent some time in the States.
Well, the publisher I'm with is more a library publisher than a bookshop publisher.
So when you say that, what do you mean by that? A library publisher?
Well, their prime market is libraries rather than bookshops.
I see. Okay, yeah.
And of course, there's a much bigger market for that in America than there is here.
Right.
So it's the trade magazines over there are very important because you get a good review in the trades, the libraries are going to buy it.
Ah, okay.
And it's just been reviewed in the States, which is kind of important because the library budget over there runs until the end of June, and they need to get their budget spent so they know they'll have at least that same amount of money next year.
Yeah.
So you get a good review and they'll go around and snap it up. So, that's kind of heartening, really.
Yeah. But I mean, even from like a personal perspective, do you still get excited when you read a good review?
Oh God, yeah. And I get devastated when I read a bad one. I think it's just part of being human, more than anything.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, definitely. And have you found that in this particular time when we're all locked down, has that helped or hindered your writing process?
As I said, I had to put one book aside because of the way it was, because of the anger being the fuel for it. But in a lot of ways, it's made no difference because I work from home anyway, and it's a very solitary occupation being a writer.
Yeah.
So it's made very little difference to that end of things at all. And I still go and work every day. I'm going through the proofs of a couple of books right now. I don't feel there's any real deadline on anything at the moment, apart from getting the proofs done. So I can take my time over that.
And is that better because you don't have that sort of pressure?
Yeah, it is. And actually, the thing that's relieved a lot of the pressure is later this month, my British pension kicks in. So I'm going to have a cushion of money. And from August, my US Social Security pension kicks in.
Brilliant.
Which is an even bigger cushion of money because I lived over there and paid my taxes over there for 30 years.
Yeah.
So, whereas I've been living for a long time, for 26 years on what I've earned as a writer, I still have writing income coming in, but now I have that cushion and it's just like,
Finally.
Of course, with coronavirus, I just have to stay alive long enough to collect it.
Yeah, to make sure you do that. That would be terrible.
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, if I pop off before I collect my American pension, I am going to be so pissed.
On the other side.
Yeah, I'll come back and I'll rage, I'll tell you.
Oh dear. It's quite interesting that you said the thing about that you've had to put one book aside because the feeling of the book was anger and you're not sort of in that, feeling that sort of mode at the moment. What sort of, what kind of things are you finding easy to write in this sort of period?
Sadder stuff, actually.
Yeah.
Obviously, I write crime novels, so people die. But the book set in 1917, you've got a war going on and young men, dying in France and stuff like that. And the whole nature of life at home has changed. So and things that affect Harper personally, although I'm not going to give anything away and get into that. But it's, that it feels, I have a very soft spot for those books anyway. Tom and his family are completely alive to me.
Yeah.
So I have that connection with them, and it feels more real in a situation like this, I suppose.
Yeah. Does it make it difficult then, like, if you're ever thinking of sort of where you're going to go long term with Tom Harper? Does it, do you get upset yourself if you think that something terrible is going to happen, or, something that you know is going to affect the family?
Yes and no, because, that stuff does happen to people. It happens in every family, so they're just going through that. And as I say, I know the series arc. It's part of the series will end in, well, actually probably be about 1919, and then, but it's only ending in part, which is a tease, and it's as far as it's as much as I'm going to give anyone.
Okay.
But it will also continue. So it's yeah.
And I know that you said that being a writer is quite a solitary thing, but I mean, you tend to go out and you do talks, and you go to sort of literary events and things like that. So have you been able to continue any of that kind of thing online, or is that part of your life completely just paused for now?
That's just on hold for now. I did something in the Leeds Literary Festival right at the very start of March, and that was the last thing.
Yeah.
And there have been a couple of other things that obviously haven't happened. And that's fine. I haven't given it much thought, to be honest. My getting out now is either me and my partner going for a walk, or much more of the time me going over and working on my allotment.
Yeah, I bet that's been quite a nice focus to have during this time, and also productive.
It is, actually. It's lovely because when I'm there and I'm working on it, everything else goes away.
Yeah.
I'm just existing in the moment, digging or hoeing or whatever. And that's very gratifying, actually.
What kind of stuff have you got growing?
Oh, boy. I recently took over a second quarter plot, so I have a decent size allotment now.
Yeah.
Got a large strawberry patch, a couple of apple trees, plum tree, blackberries, blueberries, gooseberries.
Wow.
Black currants. I've got 50 metres of potatoes, onions. I think I counted this morning 42 head of garlic. And there's a lot more still to go in as the weather warms up. So,
yeah, brilliant.
Oh yeah, I love it. I really do.
Yeah, and it's it's getting back to nature, isn't it? And then also just like, knowing that you're going to be able to provide, potatoes forever. It sounds like.
Well, yeah, it's there is something lovely about eating things you've grown yourself.
Yeah.
But even more just the act of growing them, and when there's more than we're going to use, giving some away to people who live in the flats where we are and stuff like that. Yeah,
that's really nice, being able to share your produce.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, we'll see how everything does this year. A couple of years ago, it was wonderful, and some of the stuff was really good last year, so it depends so much on the weather.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Of course it does. And so you are currently writer-in-residence at Abbey House Museum?
I am indeed.
How exciting.
It came about originally out of a tweet I sent to Leeds Museums, who have a very good digital engagement. I said, you guys need a writer in residence, and a few people piped up and said, oh yeah, you'd be perfect for it. And it was more of a joke than anything else. And then I've done stuff with the museums before, particularly out at Abbey House, and they got in touch and said, let's talk about this. Brilliant. So we did. It came about, I published a couple of pieces for them so far. One about objects you find in a museum, because I'm writing, just for my own pleasure, a sort of very brief introductory history of Sheepska.
Okay.
Because a lot of my family lives there. And one of the things they found in their archives was an 1858 invoice. And it was to the estate of somebody, a painter and decorator, done some work for him. And I looked at the invoice, and it's one of those, oh my God moments.
Yeah.
It was my great, great, great uncle.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, it was real jaw-dropping stuff, and wow. And that formed the basis of one of the pieces, because I could go through what happened to him and his family after he died, through for a couple of more generations. So it was, and I've also done a piece on one of the exhibits in the Sounds of Our City exhibition,
okay.
which is all about, and that particular exhibit relates to a guy called Frank Kidson, who was a Victorian song collector who lived in Leeds. And I'm also currently researching a piece on early Leeds jazz for them.
Right.
Leeds jazz in the 1950s and 60s. Mm-hmm. So partly an oral history of some people who are still around, and which is quite fascinating for me.
Yeah,
because music is one of my loves.
Mm. So the role of writer in residence then, have you sort of, is there like a specified way of doing this, or, did you get together with the museum and come up with your own way of doing things?
Well, we're working as we go along, because I'm the first.
Right.
So it's uncharted territory.
Mm-hmm.
Or, to use one of the buzzwords at the moment, it's unprecedented.
I think everyone's getting sick to death of hearing that word, aren't they?
Oh, God, yes. But just having fun with it, and
yeah.
I mean, the Sheepska piece will probably end up with the Family and History Library.
Yeah.
Because I managed to get the research done on that before any sort of lockdown, and there's actually a very limited amount of stuff anyway, because it was primarily working class and business.
Yeah.
So it's one little fact that I did discover is that the Turnpike Road going up from Sheepska towards Chapeltown, up the hill there, was originally built by Blind Jack of Knaresborough, who was one of the most famous road builders of his time.
Blind Jack of Knaresborough?
Yeah.
and so he was a famous road builder?
Yeah.
Just because he was so prolific, or?
Pretty much, I think, yeah. And he also evidently built better roads than anybody else. But yeah, he was famous, Blind Jack Metcalf.
He sounds like a person that you could write a whole history of just about him.
Oh, probably people have, to be honest. I didn't bother to check that out. And, there was a barracks there. And believe it or not, near the bottom of Roundhay Road, going back to the 1830s to about the 1860s, there was a pleasure garden.
Oh, yeah.
Which is impossible to imagine these days. But,
yeah.
The little things that turned up are quite fascinating. So, yeah. But, I love finding out about Leeds. It's just so wonderful.
Yeah, it's just such a rich history, isn't there, really, to go through in sort of any direction you look.
Pretty much, yeah. As I say, because I have a family connection to Sheepska, it's fascinated me, and nobody had written about it. So I thought, oh well, I guess I better then.
Mm-hmm. What do you know? What is the origin of the name of sheepscar then?
Nobody knows, quite honestly.
Right.
Not with any sort of certainty.
Yeah.
There's a fair chance it dates back to Norse or Saxon.
Okay.
But it's hard to be sure. And anything is just going to be a guess.
Yeah, of course. So how are you personally finding lockdown then? So you said it's not too different to the way you sort of live your normal life. But I suppose you must have come across some sort of restrictions.
Yeah. I like to keep at least 4 meters away from people wherever possible.
Yeah, rather than the 2.
Yeah. Somebody gets in the air, it's like, no, keep your distance, please. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of taking one of my 2-meter bamboo canes from the allotment and taping a knife on the end. Taping a knife on the end of it.
Yeah. As an extra
we take it in turns to, yeah. And I'm also investigating whether I can get a taser from Amazon. But we take it in turns to go to the supermarket, and we just go once a week. So it's, we both find it somewhat stressful.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we're not alone in that at all.
No, yeah, definitely.
So it's, but really that's as close as we come to being around people. Mm-hmm. I don't go anywhere except the supermarket, and I'm needing some flour, and I know there's the nut shop in the market has flour, and I thought, well, do I want to go into town? I thought, no, honestly, I don't.
Yeah, that's part of the thing, isn't it? It's working out what is reasonable to do, and things that not so long ago would have been perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You're having to rethink, aren't you?
Yeah, I managed to find some from a mill near York that, it costs more, but it means I don't have to go anywhere around people. So that's fine. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And what have you been making with your flour?
Oh, I've baked my own bread for years.
Oh, right, okay. So it's always been a thing that you've done. Everyone else is just jumping on the bread bandwagon now.
Yeah. I think I started somewhere around 2011, something like that. Mm-hmm. My partner doesn't eat bread, so it's just me, so it's a loaf a week, and that's how it's been for years.
Yeah.
I can't imagine actually buying a loaf of bread now, so it's... well,
that's fantastic.
That's how bad I am.
And have you come across any sort of resources or hints and tips to do with the whole lockdown situation?
The best thing I can suggest to people is get outside once a day. Mm-hmm. On your own or with your partner or with your kids. Even if it's just for a half an hour.
Yeah.
If you can. If there's a green space you can go to, go there.
Yeah.
Read. Reading takes you away from everything. It's your imagination. Mm-hmm. The words on the page are just the key to open the door to your imagination.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's definitely one of the things that I'm taking as a positive from all this, is that I've got more time to read.
Yeah. I mean, the whole meaning of time has changed for us all, I think. Mm-hmm. We can't rush anywhere nowadays because there's nowhere to rush to.
Yeah, and I know obviously it's different for different people, and some people are having a terrible time with it. But for me personally, it's just been a really great period of self-reflection. And not constantly rushing everywhere has given me time to think about everything, which I think is I'm finding really useful. I can imagine I'm going to get bored of myself eventually, but for now, I don't mind it too much.
Well, I'm an only child, so I've always been very self-contained. So perhaps that actually helps stand me in good stead for all this. I don't know. But I'm fine with it going, with lockdown going on for quite a while. Yeah. I'd actually feel happier with it, but that is just me, And
everybody's different. I know a lot of people are desperate for it to be over. And like from the point of view of being able to see my family, obviously, it would be great for it to be over. Also, it's my birthday at the end of this month, and it would have been, it'd be lovely to be able to celebrate with people. But I think again, you're just gonna have to come up with other ways of doing these sort of things. But yeah, I'm the same as you. Like, I don't mind it too much, and also I would rather we were in lockdown for longer. It would make me anxious to have to go back to work at this point, or I wouldn't feel safe, at this juncture.
I agree. I have no desire to be around people. Last week, my free bus pass arrived, and I'm going, oh, wow, that's great. I've really been looking forward to this. Mind you, I don't know when I'll use it, but...
Yeah.
My son lives in Seattle, so we're used to Skyping anyway, so there's no difference to that.
And how's he finding it there?
He's able to work from home, so he's actually still working full time.
Yeah.
But his mother works at a plant nursery, which was sort of staying open just for people to pick up orders. Mm-hmm. And she decided she wasn't comfortable with that, and she's, for the moment, taken unemployment.
Right, yeah.
But, they've got a wage coming in with him, and he doesn't have a social life. His social life is online.
Right.
Always has been.
Yeah.
So for him, it's quite honestly no difference at all, other than the fact he doesn't have to get on a bus and go to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Different strokes for us all, I suppose, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, in that regard, he's very much like me. He's very self-contained. So he'd been considering coming over this summer, but, well, there's always next summer, so...
Yeah, exactly. So in the spirit of encouraging the people of Leeds to read more, where can they find your work?
Well, if you belong to the public library, you'll be able to borrow my books on ebook, or you can get them from the usual big online suspects, like the one named after a South American river.
Yeah.
And others. Although, quite honestly, you do much better going to Waterstones, who can do mail order, or there's actually a very good little indie near Selby called Fox Lane Books.
Fox Lane Books, I shall make a note.
Yeah, that can provide you with many good novels. Because, of course, there are a lot of other good writers around, and if people want to explore what Leeds was like in the 1930s, the best book about that I've ever read is the memoir called City Lights by Keith Waterhouse.
City Lights.
And Keith Waterhouse, of course, wrote Billy Liar, and he was, God knows what else, is quite famous.
Yeah. I've read Billy Liar. I love that book.
Yeah. Of course, as soon as he could, he buggered off down to London and stayed there. But City Lights, for me, is a better book than Billy Liar.
Right.
So I'd recommend it.
That is definitely going on my list.
Oh, yeah. It's Hunslet and Middleton and Belle Isle, and also the city centre at the time. And he does a superb job of conjuring it up. He really does.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's a good one for me to get on with. And, of course, all of your own work.
Yes, and I do have plenty of good books available.
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to reading them out in the city. Thank you so much for coming along. What will you be doing with the rest of your day, do you think?
Read, very likely.
Yes.
I've got my work out of the way this morning, so I'm free apart from having to make dinner later.
Brilliant. Well, an afternoon of reading sounds like a good way to spend your time to me.
Does to me too. And thank you very much for having me on again, Hazel.
Well, thank you so much for remotely connecting and telling us what you've been up to since I last spoke to you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
It was great to catch up with Chris, and I loved hearing about Blind Jack the Road Builder. Do check out Chris's work. He's a fantastic writer. The track this week is Prince Charming by the talented Beverley Beirne. Look out for her upcoming album, Dream Dancer. Look after yourself, Leeds.
Don't you ever stop being dandy, showing me you're handsome. Don't you ever stop being dandy, showing me you're handsome. Prince Charming, ridicule is nothing to be scared of. Don't you ever stop being dandy, showing me you're handsome. Don't you ever lower yourself, forgetting all your standards. Don't you ever lower yourself, forgetting all your standards. Prince Charming, ridicule is nothing to be scared of. Don't you ever, don't you ever stop being dandy, showing me you're handsome. Don't you ever lower yourself, forgetting all your standards. Don't you ever, don't you ever lower yourself, forgetting all your standards. Don't you ever, don't you ever stop being dandy, showing me you're handsome. Prince Charming, ridicule is nothing to be scared of. Prince Charming, ridicule is nothing to be scared of. Prince Charming, ridicule is nothing to be scared of.